Good Thursday afternoon, guys. My name is Jerry Miller, and welcome to the I Love CVille Show. Thank you kindly for joining us on a glorious day to be alive. We are live across Charlottesville, Albemarle County, Central Virginia, the Commonwealth, the country, and the world. And it's great to connect with you guys through the I Love CVille Network. We thank Dr. Scott Wagner of Scott Wagner Integrated Medicine for being one of the presenting sponsors of today's show. Dr. Wagner and his team undoubtedly have your back. Today's show, I think, is going to hit close to home with a number of parents that watch. May hit close to home with a number of students that watch the show as well. We will talk Mountain View Elementary. Mountain View is the second largest elementary school from a capacity standpoint in Albemarle County. Right down the road of, it's Avon Extended, guys. Avon Extended. We call it Southside Charlottesville, but it's technically across the Albemarle County line for those that want to know the exact location. I'll set the stage, and then we're going to welcome the parent of a rising fifth grader, Paul McArtor, to the show. We have 115 fifth graders who potentially could get displaced from Mountain View Elementary and pushed to Walton Middle School. This displacement is tied to an overcrowding issue. Overcrowding is commonality in public schools. What is not common is taking fifth graders out of elementary schools and asking them to go to middle school. We'll assess the collateral damage of that move with Paul McArtor. We'll talk real estate, planning, infrastructure, education. Now, before we go any further, and I don't want to speak for Paul, but we had this conversation off air, both of us are in favor of people having the American dream of home ownership. We are not knocking folks owning homes and creating more rooftops in this community. We all know, hell, he's a realtor. We all know we need more homes in this area. However, we cannot do that at the expense of students, their education, and their future. So without further ado, Judah Wickower, our director, let's go to the studio camera first, and let's welcome Paul McArtor to the show. You have every media outlet watching you on the program here, as a heads up.
Yep.
Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us.
Hey, thank you for having me. Yeah, this is since last Tuesday when this really kind of became public knowledge. There's been quite a lot of attention to it. News, we've been on the news, interviews, daily progress. There's been a lot of attention. I believe probably a little unexpected to the school board and the superintendent's office that the decision was going to be reacted to the way they did.
I see some school board members on the feed, watching the program as we speak. All right, so let's set the stage. I will get out of your way. 80 students, overcrowded. It's got a capacity Mountain View of 624.
Yep.
704 projected for the fall.
The 704 as of right now is the projection.
Okay.
There's a couple things that could play with that. There's a neighborhood called Spring Hill Village that's being built pretty quick.
Is that the Stanley Martin?
That's the Stanley Martin one,
Okay.
just down the street from Mountain View.
And that's a big one.
It's a big one.
How many rooftops?
Man, off the top of my head, I'd say it's very similar to the Avinity size, and we're about 200.
Okay.
So you're looking at that. It's high. It's a higher density, so it's all mainly townhomes with a few villas and stuff in there. Great neighborhood. You said this, and I want to echo it. The issue. This is not a anti-development, anti-building thing. I'm actually very much a pro-development and think that's the actual.
That's how he makes his living.
Yeah,
real estate.
Well, and it's also the true answer to like helping our affordable housing. You know, a lot of the other things that people do is really just, nipping around the fringe. The only way you're going to make more affordable housing is to make more housing, more dense housing, more cheap housing. Those are really the only solutions. So this is definitely not from that. The other thing I wanted to say right from the very beginning to make sure there's no confusion with this. This is not anything against the leadership of Mountain View Elementary. We love the school. If you talk to anybody who goes to Mountain View, people love the school. Part of the problem, people keep moving into the district because they want to send their kids to that school. This is also not anything against Walton Middle School, which is where my kids are going to go when they go to middle school. The principal, Mr. Walton, has done fantastic things since he's been there. So this isn't any kind of hit on that. The issue comes from above both of those people. So kind of I'll give where we start and we'll take it from whichever way you want to go.
Sure.
So during COVID, when we had to space kids out further, we had to do everything. For years, Mountain View has been overpopulated and Walton has been underutilized. So as part of the COVID workaround, they sent the fifth graders to Walton for 2 days a week. And parents, look, anybody who has kids, all of us wanted our kids to go to school. I would have driven my kids to Ruckersville. I'd driven them to Richmond to send them to school. So a lot of parents bent over backwards and were extremely flexible with the decisions and stuff the school system was making because everybody was worried about the pandemic. Everybody was wanting their kids to go to school, but everybody was wanting them to go to school safely. So there really wasn't a lot of pushback to the fifth graders going to Walton for this 2 days a week pandemic situation. What I believe has happened now is that created a little bit of a crack, and now the school system is trying to push through that crack, making it a more permanent situation. When I say permanent, there is an expansion to Mountain View scheduled to be done by the 2023 to 2024 school year. So this isn't a permanent solution, but it's definitely being marketed as a one-year solution. It really has to be a two-year solution.
I was going to say.
Because the building's not going to be built.
Exactly.
So it's really a two-year solution at a minimum. So that's kind of what happened. They presented to us last Tuesday.
Who's
this
they?
plan. Okay, so the people who were on the call with us to present it to us was the principal of Mountain View, Cindy Wells, and the principal of Walton, Mr. Walton. Those were the people who, to be honest with you, were put on the front lines to give this news to people. And the way that it was painted to us was it was not a decision that had already been made. It was a highly likely solution, but they were still looking at other things. Now, the problem is shortly before this meeting, the after-school program had already told fifth grade parents rising fifth grade parents that we could not put our kids in for the after school because they weren't going to be at Mountain View. So the next day, Dr. Haas, the superintendent, had a meeting
Of Albemarle County Schools.
Of Albemarle County Schools.
Yeah, Matt Haas.
Had a meeting with parent reps from the PTOs. And one of the topics that came up was there's an online school for Albemarle, and by I believe it's June 1st, we're supposed to submit to the school if we're going to send our kids in person or we're going to send them, And one of the Mountain View parent reps asked a very reasonable question, which was, can we extend this until after we find out if our kids are going to go to Walton?
Great question.
Very, very easy question.
Yeah.
And the response that was given to her was the decision had already been made. Sorry, they're going to Walton.
So this decision is done.
Well, so the fun part is, so Tuesday we were told wasn't a final decision. Wednesday, Dr. Haas says that it is. And then last night we had another meeting with, now this meeting included Dr. Haas, 2 members of the school board.
Which members of the school board?
You're going to put me on the spot with names. I know it's the Scottsville one, and also our at-large member of the school board. Sorry, I apologize to both of you for going blank on both your names. So they were in this meeting, which was nice to see. So,
Ellen Osborne.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah,
Jen.
Miss
We'll
Osborne.
thank Jen right
there. Yeah, there you go. Thank you.
I think you say thank you to Jen a lot, don't you?
Yeah.
Just like I do to my wife.
That's my wife, just so y'all know.
I say thank you to my wife all the time.
So Miss Osborne. So the conversation we had again last night was that the decision wasn't made yet. We assure you the decision's not made. A little bit of backtracking happening. Now they are going to let fifth graders be put in for the after school, and we're going to reserve those slots, but if it ends up happening, then they'll go to the waitlisted people. Let's just say there was some very impressive backtracking done last night. But last night's meeting, to say it in the most blunt way, had to have been an absolute disaster from the leadership of Albemarle County Schools. So the meeting was supposed to last 45 minutes, was supposed to take in parents' opinions and be a question and answer and stuff. Instead, the first 45 minutes was the school system kind of explaining to us all the data most of us had already seen from the previous week. So about the 45-minute point when the meeting was originally supposed to end was when they finally stopped their spiel. To cap it off, the last 3 to 4 minutes was a video that they had done that was a sales pitch. It was a sales pitch on how awesome Walton is.
And it described the video.
So it had interview with Mr. Walton, had some interview in there with Miss Wells, the principals.
The two principals.
A part that really kind of stuck people pretty bad is it had quite a few snippets of interview or kids that are at Walton right now, 5th graders, like basically tell us why you love it here kind of thing. We have been told over and over again how successful this has been, the 5th graders being at Walton for this period of time. But the problem that we're running into is the parents are not agreeing with that. Okay, the parents at least that I've talked to, I'm not going to speak for all of them. The parents that I've talked to whose kids currently go to Walton, their kids are coming home, they're getting home at like 5 o'clock. For those that don't have elementary age kids usually get home about 2:15.
5 o'clock versus 2:15. So we're talking a 2.5 hour plus delta.
And that's
a tremendous delta.
And that's because of the longer school day for middle school and also the additional bus ride that a lot of people aren't used to having. So what we're hearing from the parents of these kids is not the same read that we're getting. They're coming home, they're exhausted. They're not having any time for outdoor play after school. I mean, they're getting home at like 5 o'clock, dinner's at 6:30, boom, they're going to bed. So there's definitely a little bit of there was very much a propaganda feel to the presentation, especially to the video. So that video, I would say, what created a little bit of a firestorm at the meeting last night.
Let me throw this here. We got a lot of comments coming in. Folks, you can put your comments on social media and I will relay them on air. Lori Tambrino, I will get to your comment.
Yep.
The other school board member, Sharon Fick, says was Johnny Alcaro.
Thank you. Yes,
Johnny Alcaro watching.
Was the other one.
Every media outlet in town is watching Paul on this show here. I'm going to ask the viewers these questions. If you were a parent of a rising 5th grader, and you found out your kid could no longer spend his or her time learning in elementary school and instead had to go to a middle school to learn, how would you feel? If you were a parent of a rising 5th grader and we just got out of COVID, and for the last 14 or 15 months, our youngsters, our boys and girls in our community, have not had the same social interaction to help them from a maturation standpoint, and then 5th graders were asked to go into a middle school with much older kids, how would you feel about that? Another question, if you're a parent of a rising 5th grader and you find out your children are gonna have to spend an extra 2 hours and change of their day simply riding a bus, how would you feel about that? How would you feel about the fact that the library or the playground at the middle school is not set up for your 5th grader?
There is no playground at all at Walton.
There's no playground at all at Walton. How would you feel about that? How would you feel about smoke and mirrors tactics utilized by the school division to help manage the problem as opposed to keeping the problem from happening in the first place? Okay? And then the last thing I want to bring up, if this happened at Meriwether Lewis Elementary in Ivy, if 5th graders at Meriwether Lewis Elementary in Ivy and their parents were told, you're going to Henley and not Meriwether, can you imagine the uproar from Meriwether Lewis Elementary and its student body and its parents?
Well, and actually, let me touch on something related to that that's really, really important for those that don't understand Mountain View. So the demographics for Mountain View, it is one of the lowest income schools. Now, it does a very big spread. One of the major factors for the diversity and stuff like that makes Mountain View so wonderful is that we have a lot of people from Southwood. I know on your shows you've talked about the Southwood community. There's a lot of students who are out Southwood who are English as a second language, which creates an awesome Spanish immersion program.
I mean, you've got one of the best ones.
Oh, yeah.
If not the best one.
Oh, I agree completely. And so, but the problem that we have is a lot of the people from Southwood are very underrepresented in these meetings that happen. You know, they're underrepresented when it comes to talking at the school board, at the planning commission, at the board of supervisors. And there is a certain part of it that there's a big equity issue to it. We're talking about a batch of fifth graders, one school of fifth graders that are going to be in an additional upheaval. Some of these that needed additional assistance due to English as a second language and some other things like that. They're also going to be one batch of fifth graders who have to attend school for 2 extra hours. And not 2 extra hours of really solid education. There's some filler in there to cover because they don't want this batch of fifth graders to be on a different path than other fifth graders. So that's happening, and a lot of it are disadvantaged kids that are going to be suffering this. In fact, when we talk about the busing, so my daughter's automatically going to go to Walton when she's in 6th grade.
His daughter is a rising fifth grader.
Yep, rising fifth grader.
Yeah.
She's going to go to Walton hopefully the year after next. She'll be able to just get on the Walton bus that comes to our neighborhood. But if your kids are at Southwood or your kids are at Redfields or something like that, you're routed to go to Burley, not Walton. So these kids are going to be shipped all the way around down Avon Street extended down to 20. Well, there may be a back way, but they're going to go down to Walton. This upheaval for them is going to be 1 year. They're not getting to their middle school year early. They're going to Walton for 1 year, and then the following year, they're going to have to shift to Burley anyways. So you're talking about an additional upheaval for these kids that other fifth graders aren't going to have to deal with. Post-COVID.
When the last 14 months, they've learned their ABCs and 1, 2, 3s in the coat closet, the guest bedroom, or on the kitchen table.
So of my daughter's 6 years, counting kindergarten, that she's supposed to be at Mountain View, she will have been out of the building 2.5 years of that. Using that. And here's one other thing, and I know you'll have a bunch of questions.
There's a ton coming in.
So one other thing that's really important to note. So the projection right now for 21-22 is 704 students. Okay, overpopulated, we've done that, even though the Board of Supervisors has approved 8 neighborhoods and developments within the school district during this time that has been overpopulated. But regardless, in the year 2019-2020, so the year prior to COVID, they got surprised. The projection they had for that year was 630 students, and they actually ended up having 721. So not ideal, but nobody had to leave Mountain View during the 19 to 20 school year. They were able to figure out how to take care of, actually by the end of the school year, they had a peak of 735 students, and they were able to make it happen. Was it ideal? No, but neither sending the kids to Walton. So if we know it can already be done, why the crazy move? I have my theories.
What's the theory?
So one of my theories I have is there was a crack in the armor basically under COVID. They people were flexible, and they said, let's send fifth graders to Walton. Like I said, everybody was being super flexible.
Roughly 60 fifth graders
Roughly
went to
60
Walton.
For 2 days a week.
Yeah.
Walton is very underutilized. It's a great school. The campus is amazing, but it's a very underutilized school. So this is a way to send fifth graders and further utilize Walton, which is, from a political standpoint, it's way easier to justify a school being there, being full. There also, in this time, there's preschool that's been added to Mountain View. The Bright Stars program, which is fantastic, has been added to Mountain View. They're taking up some of the classrooms also. There's some additional funding that comes with like Bright Stars and some of the other programs and stuff like that. So it does very much feel like we shift the fifth graders who are already on the tax rolls down to Mountain View, and then we open up and we have more room for some of these other programs to get in there.
That's a good theory.
I mean, it's a theory.
That's logical.
It is. some of the feedback that we've gotten about some other ideas about having like learning shelters or trailers, for lack of a better word, that there's not any room to have those on Mountain View's campus. There's been those in the past. The bus circle has had 4 before. They say they're short 5 classrooms. If we move the preschoolers and the Bright Stars to either Monticello or move them to Walton, that frees up 3 classrooms. Previously, 4 classroom trailers have been in the bus circle of Mountain View. There's 7. I just came up with 2 bonus rooms for some surprise expansion. So those are a couple things in there. And then, but start firing some questions. It'll be interesting.
We're going to get questions here. I have some questions here myself before, and Bill McKenzie, we're going to get to your comment. Ray Cadell is giving you tremendous props. Is it Will, I always mess your name. Will Nafee?
Yep.
Will
fellow Avenue agent.
Is giving you some serious props here. A lot of the parents from Mountain View are watching. School board members of Almora are watching, and you have one current board supervisor watching you on the show. I'm going to throw this to you first. How did we get to the point where we have an enrollment of Mountain View of 624? Mm-hmm. The expected enrollment is 704. So we're talking in an overcrowding of 80 students, minimum, and it could be potentially more.
The last time the projection was under the capacity was the 14-15 school year.
Okay, so that's a long time ago. Mm-hmm. A long time ago. The last time that happened, the student who was in first grade is now in middle school. Mm-hmm. Okay, so how did we get to the point of being overcrowded to the tune of 13%? And again, we're all for rooftops, mm-hmm. especially in the urban ring, which you live in, the urban ring. But how did we get to this point? Your take.
So the idea at the local government level that having a planned expansion is a solution. And what I mean
what does that mean?
So I was in a neighborhood meeting for a potential apartment complex being put in right down the street from Mountain View. And I brought up to Donna Price, who's the board of supervisor that covers Scottsville, about about how poor governance it is to approve additional developments, knowing that the school is already overpopulated. And the response that she gave was, there's a planned expansion. Well, that planned expansion at earliest is going to be ready for the 2023 school year. But since this, let's say the last 6 years, in the Mountain View School District, off of the top of my head, Avinity Estates has been done, Spring Hill Village, Winnington, Oak Hill Village, Sunset Overlook.
Oak Hill Farm, yeah.
Oak Hill Farm. Those have all been done and built out. Spring Hill Village is in the process of being built out. They've also approved Galaxy Farms, that hasn't started yet. They've also approved Avon Park 2, which hasn't started yet. They approved a small apartment, 24-unit apartment complex that's under construction right now. And then there is this other one that's being discussed that actually has the makings of a really good project. But they keep doing this, and her answer was, there is a planned expansion already.
Supervisor Price.
That's Supervisor Price. So, but that's not a place for a kid to go to, right? We have this problem solved 3 years from now isn't a solution.
Yeah.
Now, the other thing to top that is they're saying right now that we're short 5 classrooms, right? The planned expansion, guess how many classrooms it adds to the school?
How many?
5. Now, it also does add some additional arts, music rooms.
Hold on.
Yeah.
The plant, this is so frustrating. The planned expansion is for 5 classrooms.
And some additional music room, art room. There's some other stuff there.
But you're saying we're 5 short now.
Yeah. So we're solving today's problem, and it's going to be built in 2 years.
We're solving today's problem tomorrow, and we're not even considering the fact that this elementary school is going to be saturated even more with these neighborhoods that are coming online.
Yeah.
So this is the definition of no vision.
Yeah, we're basically continue digging ourselves a hole.
Right.
Yeah.
So what he's basically saying in very logical terms is this is going to continue happening and could potentially get worse.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, if you follow just some of the potential logic, by the time the new addition is done, They may still need to keep fifth graders at Walton so that they have room for more fourth graders and third graders and second graders.
Explain to me this. Your daughter
Yep.
is a rising fifth grader.
Correct.
She will be, what it sounds like it's already, the decision's been made. But, and
Depends on who you talk to.
right. I mean, that's also called smoke and mirrors and managing a PR problem. How do you feel as a parent that your rising fifth grader who spent the last year and change of her life away from most of her peers, learning the cues of human connection and social behavior, or not learning them because of virtual learning in COVID, how do you feel about a fifth grader being in the hallways with eighth graders? As you said before the show, that's basically walking the hallway with the babysitter of your daughter, right?
Yep.
Right? How do you feel, A, about that, and B, can you characterize in any way the maturation delta between a fifth grader and eighth grader? And I know that everyone's different, but I remember when I was in eighth grade and what was going through my body and what was in my head, and the only thing that was in my head when I was in eighth grade was girls.
Yep.
Okay? And then I remember fifth grade, and the only thing I cared about in fifth grade was playing soccer and being outside.
Well, and there's some studies, people have tried to look up studies of fifth graders being in middle school, and there aren't any. We couldn't find any. But there have been studies found of sixth graders being in middle school. And those studies show things like sixth graders that are in middle school have a higher rate of disciplinary issues and stuff to that nature. So now we're sliding in even younger. And there are some parents who have very legitimate concerns about their 10-year-old being on a bus with a 14-year-old.
Yeah.
I mean, I can definitely understand that concern, and it's an extremely valid one. The other thing that goes with that is a lot of these kids, the school day starts later for middle school, so some of these fifth graders are going to have to go to the bus stop by themselves because it's going to be after their parents have already left for work. What are we talking about happening there? There's currently no after-school program at Walton, so now we're talking about the kids getting dropped off at the bus at 4 or 5 o'clock. Where are they going home to? So there is definitely some issues there that, as much as it may feel like this is only this is a fifth grader. What's the big deal between the difference between fifth and sixth grade?
It's a huge deal.
It's a huge deal. It's a huge deal. There's a lot of people feel comfortable with their 11 or 12-year-old staying home alone. Don't feel comfortable with their 10-year-old, 9 and 10-year-old staying home.
Of course.
And that's really where you're at with that number. And then there's a lot of contradictions in the plan. I guess we'll use the word plan. The plan that the school board has. So things like the fifth graders are going to be in their own pod, so they're going to be isolated from the middle school. They're going to be separate. Don't worry, they're still Mountain View Colts, but
that's what they're telling you.
That's what they're having. But they're going to be isolated. Oh, but also one of the great things about being at Walton, they'll be able to take advantage of some of the clubs and some of the other things Walton has. Now, how are those two things happening at the same time?
Yeah, those are contradictions.
Yeah. One of the other things, if you've ever had a fifth grader, fifth grade, you're the top of your school. Right? This is your chance to be like the big dog in the school.
Sure.
So that's when you're the ambassador, you're helping to teach the younger kids to read. You're doing all kinds of things as a fifth grader. They don't get that. They go right into being not the bottom of Walton, but the bottom of the bottom because they're just this kind of stuck in there.
Yeah, and if you're an eighth grader in Walton and you're seeing these fifth graders coming into your school, of course you're going to be like, hey, what are these people doing here?
Yeah.
They're out of place. And if anything, that's going to lead to more bullying and picking on these kids.
Well, and then you start talking about the resources. So I said there's no playground. Well, they're talking about we're going to build some kind of playground. Man, if that's a lot of money to spend for a one-year solution, right? So then they're talking about, we're going to get some books in the library. We're talking about having 100 books in the library. Well, there's more than 100 fifth graders, and you're going to have 100 fifth grade books. So there's a lot that goes there. And some of the other stuff that hasn't been clarified yet is when they get taught art, are they being taught art by a middle school teacher or are they being taught art by an elementary school teacher?
And another thing is the elementary school music teacher, the elementary school art teacher, is that teacher then expected to commute during the school day from Mountain View to Walton to teach the fifth graders?
You'd expect so. And then
Has that been asked?
that has been asked and
Is there an answer?
And not answered.
So we're potentially asking our most valuable employees, some of them are our most valuable employees and team members in this community, teachers, to potentially get in a car during the school day and go from Mountain View to Walton and back?
Yeah, and
Is that true?
That is true. And then check
That is
this out.
bananas.
But here's a funny. So they went over some of the alternative ideas they had to this, right? You ever have where you have a really good idea and somebody's like, well, let's explore some other options, and you throw out some other options and you already know the answers to why. So one of the options is to possibly put a 6-classroom temporary building in the lower field of Mountain View.
Yeah.
The pushback against that is that it's at a lower elevation so that you can't have a line of sight of a kid leaving the building. And it could add like 5 additional minutes for them to commute to their music class, PE, lunch, because of the distance that's out there.
Okay.
So in their thought process, the idea that my 5th grader might have to walk from a building on campus out of their sight to get into the next building, or that it may take 5 extra minutes to get to music class is
worse than a 2.5-hour bus ride round trip, extra time, or being in the hallways with 8th graders and potentially bullied. Yeah. That is horrible thinking.
Yeah, that's some of the rationale that they're giving to parents to justify this situation. And that's what happened a lot. Yes, like the reasoning behind why these other ideas wouldn't work, none of them are as bad as sending the kids for 2 additional hours, an extra. There was a story and
that's just logical thinking.
Yeah,
that's common sense.
Well, and it's the same common sense that if we could have gone back in time, that the same kind of common sense we would have hoped the Board of Supervisors and the Planning Commission had when there was a plan to try to build Spring Hill Village and these other places. The common sense that we would hope is this school's already overpopulated. We need to have the expansion done before we add rooftops. Or we need to do a redistricting. Nobody likes to redistrict.
Yeah,
I mean, I 100% understand that. But there are some options.
And if you do have to redistrict, you should grandfather the kids that are already in school to the schools that they're accustomed to, as opposed to having them go to a different school.
Yeah, at least like, let's say elementary. Now this is going to sound, I'm saying this because my kid's a 5th grader, going into 5th grade. Like elementary school, if you want to say, hey, we want to grandfather in the 5th graders or the 4th and 5th grade or whatever, because they're already more than halfway through that school. I could completely understand if you're redistricting not to grandfather in the 1st grader, right, who's got 4 more years. But yeah, that's how in other places I've lived. So I was in the military, so I've lived in several different places. Other places that I've lived, that's how they've done when they've added new schools and they've redistricted. Like somebody who was in the last year at a particular school could finish it off. The other thing that's so funny is like almost everywhere I've lived, schools have always had additional like learning trailers. Like that's just kind of a common occurrence, and they seem to be very anti doing that.
Why?
In this particular, but there's so many schools that have it.
Yeah.
Trying to save space, but one of the things they're trying to do is they're trying to find a space on the Mountain View grounds for a 6-unit thing, and it's like, okay, well, here's all the reasons why this 6-unit wouldn't work. Okay, well, what about 6 1-unit ones that could go, like I mentioned, in the middle of the bus circle? You could put 4 there. That is something that wasn't even talked about, even though previously when Mountain View used to be Kale, they had done that before during one of the previous expansions.
And Bill McKenzie says, it seems the school board and the school division is more worried about changing the name of the school than addressing an overpopulation problem. I promise we're going to get to all these comments here. I promise. We have a ton of comments coming in. I will throw them to Paul. If you have questions or comments, put them in the comment section. We are literally live on every social media platform humanly possible. We will archive the show on ilovecville.com. Who is pushing this narrative? Dr. Matt Haas? Supervisor Price, the Board of Supervisors?
I would say that the person pushing this particular solution is looks like it's coming from the superintendent's office, from Dr. Haas. The reason I would say that is when I was on the community meeting and I broached the subject with Donna Price, it is as though it was the first time she ever heard it.
It was the first time she had heard it. Was she being genuine?
She referred to Mountain View as kale twice.
Okay.
Which it's been called Mountain View for a year.
Yeah.
And yeah, you can always say the name wrong when you're fresh saying it. But if you would think about somebody who's talked about the school in any kind of detail over the course of the last year, you probably would be really used to saying Mountain View. So in a 5-minute stretch to say kale twice tells me that I don't think this school's really been in a lot of conversations with her. And then obviously Rick Randolph, who's on the planning, he's been on the planning commission, and last term was board of supervisors. Yeah. So he's been involved in this while all these developments were getting approved. Now we asked one of the members of Albemarle County Schools, we asked why we don't see them at board of supervisor meetings and at planning commission meetings, like bringing up this overcrowding problem.
That's a great question.
The response that we got is that a package comes through and they put in the response, and they have said, according to them, they have said that they've objected to all these developments based off of the overpopulation of Mountain View.
And they're being ignored.
If they're saying it and it's not happening, yeah, being ignored is the only option.
Comments we're going to get to now. All right, let's start at the top. Sharon Fix is saying you're representing well.
Thank you.
Lori Tamburino, the bottom line is we are now 2 weeks out from when we found out about this, and while we have been begging to have a working meeting to process different ideas and suggestions, it has yet to happen. We do not need any more info session meetings or meetings to hear our concerns. We need solutions. It now feels as though they really don't want to hear our suggestions at all. Sharon says the Daily Progress article that ran misled the community. It's not just a 10-minute drive between schools. Lori, if my rising 5th grader rode that bus next year to Walton Middle School, she would arrive home at or after 5 p.m. versus arriving to Mill Creek at 3 p.m. That's a huge difference. Mm-hmm. That is a huge difference.
And Mill Creek is one of the closer neighborhoods to Walton.
Right. Your better half said this would never, ever happen at Meriwether Lewis. Here's another comment. The 4th graders at Mountain View Elementary School are being asked to absorb the consequences of lack of foresight in planning on part of Albemarle County Public School leadership. They are being directed as rising 5th graders to Walton Middle School to be the youngest students on campus. Why? Because there's not enough room. Even though projected numbers show less students for the 2021-22 school year than we had during the 19-20 school year, this is now being presented as an emergency status requiring a novel solution, even though growth in our area is not a new topic. Katie McDaniel says this. Mm-hmm. It's the inequity of it all. No other school in this county is asking their 5th graders to completely change schools, schedules, etc., etc., etc. Here's a very good comment from Vanessa Parkhill. Albemarle County Public School projections are historically unreliable. This goes way back to when Monticello High School was built. They had trailers the first year it opened. Mm-hmm. I can't imagine all the factors needing to be considered, but it seems like more parental engagement up front coupled with coordination with plan development would help immensely. Our families deserve better. Katie Pearl, Keller Williams agent.
Yep.
She says, this will further create an inequity divide in our community. Parents with means will opt to send their children to a private school, and parents that can't afford it will not have that option. Interesting tidbit, I heard through the grapevine that St. Anne's Belfield Academy no longer accepting students because they're at capacity from an enrollment issue. So a lot of our private schools in this area are turning students away because the Val prop at private schools has never been better. This question I'm going to throw to you. This is like a chicken and an egg issue. Mm-hmm. Chicken and an egg, I mean, is it the real estate? Is it the approval of new rooftops that's caused the issue? or is it poor long-term planning by the school division, or is it both?
Well, so it's easy and probably a little bit of an easy answer to say is all of the above. I think we were on a Facebook
with Matthew
thread.
Gillikin.
Yep. And
Yeah.
talk
I wanted
about,
to tag you on that.
Yep. How
so people could hear your perspective.
Yeah. How there are some areas that the schools have to be built and have to be in place before the rooftops are done. So now you're thinking like, do we, when you're looking at budgets and stuff like that, is it feasible to build schools twice the size they need to be to fill in? Obviously, when you're talking about budget and, nobody wants to see half full schools. But I think what we have a problem with here is the Board of Supervisors and the Planning Commission not ensuring that the infrastructure is already in place.
Amen.
Or at a minimum is going to be done at the same time. Spring Hill Village, the first time that got approved, I remember being at the Board of Supervisors meeting when Spring Hill Village, not at the same meeting, but the Spring Hill Village, Avinity Estates, Avon Park 2, all were going through at the same time. That was 3 to 4 years ago. That's more than enough time.
No doubt.
To say, okay, the best way that I use this as an example when I was talking to somebody else. This is the equivalent of somebody standing on the train track, staring at a train coming at them, and then them getting hit by the train and them complaining that, they didn't see the train coming.
So he's saying we made our own bed.
Yeah, you're standing on, you see the train coming a mile away and you didn't deviate your plan. I mean, we're talking about like let's use Red Hill Elementary School as an example. Red Hill Elementary is a small school. It definitely would benefit from being beefed up, having a bigger population, because schools do a little bit larger school is good in the fact that it provides additional things. You can have more clubs when you have more students because you have more students with similar interests. So why hasn't an extension or an addition to Red Hill been planned and then a redistricting? And I apologize to anybody who gets mad whenever I say this. Like, you're talking about like the end of 5th Street extended being redistricted to go to Red Hill.
You're talking
Whittington
and
Redfield,
beyond.
stuff like that. And nobody likes to be,
because Red Hill's not far from that.
No, it can't be any further than they are from Walton.
Yeah.
Right? And that was one of the responses when they said about redistricting is they didn't want to send the kids to Red Hill because they determined that school was too far away. And it's like, but it's actually closer than Walton. So there are definitely some things that could have been done in this process. The same day, last Tuesday, that we had this kind of bombshell dropped on us, the first part of that meeting was
Tuesday.
Yeah.
When does the school start?
They said this decision has to be finalized in July.
So they gave you guys when in July? They gave you guys less than 2 months.
Yeah. Well, because it was not it was not a give us 2 months to talk about this and get your input. It was, hey, here's 2 months to prepare for this. But in that same meeting, the first half of that meeting was a consultant who was talking to us about what kind of things we'd like to see in an expansion of Mountain View. So we're just in the consultant asking us what should be at Mountain View phase of the Mountain View expansion. So with the things I've seen, unless some really good pressure gets put to it, the idea that this school is going to be finished in time for the 2023 school year is
a pipe dream.
It seems surprising to me for that. I did government contracts when I was in the military.
Yeah, nothing's on time.
Nothing goes fast.
And you're in real estate, and nothing is.
So we have now.
Carrie Renke says July 20th is the deadline.
20th. Thank you, man. All these people are keeping me in line. See, they got.
You can't mess around when you do this.
No way.
People immediately trust me.
Do
this every day.
My wife points out that there's a mom's group.
CVille Moms Group.
Well, for Mountain View, like a bunch of the moms of like the kids in our age group, and it's been on fire here for the last.
I bet. Dude, you should see what's happening right now on Twitter and Instagram, LinkedIn, Snapchat, TikTok. Share and fix. It gets even better, fellas. We have to decide by June 11th if our kids will stay virtual, and we are locked in for a semester. but they won't even have a decision about the Mountain View Elementary 5th graders until the end of July, and they won't give us an extension to decide on virtual decision. It's one school asking for an extension. She's basically saying parents that could be frustrated that their 5th grader is being jettisoned to a middle school, they may decide, let's keep our kid at home virtual learning so we can protect them even more.
But the
deadline, it's past the deadline. So they have to say whether or not they're going to the virtual school before the deadline of whether or not it's okay for your kid to go to middle school. That's messed up.
That was actually the topic where Dr. Haas, to be honest, Dr. Haas stepped in it. At the parent rep meeting, that deadline came up. This was the Wednesday after the Tuesday meeting where we were told it's not a final decision. That topic came up and the request for that extension came up. And Dr. Haas basically said, well,
he basically said the decision's been made.
Yeah, the decision's already done. Sorry, kind of thing.
Do you feel misled by Dr. Haas?
100%. I personally...
Misled or lying?
I personally sent a message to the school board to say that I believe the vast majority of parents have lost faith in Dr. Haas and he should be removed. Now...
Did you get a response?
That's my... I did get a response that, well, we just renewed his contract, so I don't foresee him going anywhere anytime soon. But here's a let's talk about, and this, I'm going to try not to make this a bash on Dr. Haas thing because
you're playing it well.
I could very easily go down that route. I was on the Kale name change committee also.
You're a very involved parent.
Well,
and so is your better half.
I also don't mind stepping in it. Like, I don't mind taking the arrows.
Yeah, you love your daughter.
Which is, and that true. So,
I'd do anything for my son.
So one of the things about that name change committee that everybody already knew, right? Even though the members of the committee definitely acted in good faith, but everybody was under the umbrella that the decision was already made, that we were going through a charade. And when we got to the end, it didn't matter. Well, then you see what happened at, I believe it's Jewett that just went through the same process, or it may have been Sutherland.
Someone just left a comment about Jack Jewett. I'll find the comment, you finish your thought.
Said that they did not support a name change and they changed the school's name anyways.
When they were going to, this is from Sharon. Sharon, you're keeping us on our toes here.
Sharon's on it now.
Sharon, I love you, Sharon Fix. I don't know who you are, but I appreciate your contributions to these shows, Sharon Fix. When they were going to redistrict the Jack Jewett and Burley kids a few years back, the redistricting committee said they will never build a school until they can fill it. But by the time they built it at capacity again, we were in the same spot. It's absolute maddening the way they do things around here.
Yeah.
Lori says, I have certainly lost faith and trust in both Mountain View Elementary School and Albemarle County Public School leadership. It is causing me to not only look to private school education for my rising 5th grader, but also for my rising 1st grader.
Yep.
You feel that way?
Well, it's possible. I could very easily...
You're blowing up here.
I could very easily see as early as young as our 3rd graders that are there at Mountain View right now going to Walton under the scenario that they're giving. Like, so when they're like, well, this is a 1-year problem and we're going to go back and we're going to go and reevaluate. Well, what's changing between now and next year that would make you need to reevaluate it? And they've given no answer to that. It's not one of the things they said is, oh, well, we don't know if we'll be able to get the learning trailers in, by the start of school. Well, you could if you would have ordered them last year when we already knew there was an issue, right? So they're
what were they
trying
doing
to
during
say,
COVID?
What's that?
What were they doing during COVID? Why was there no planning for this?
And as we said, it's been over capacity. The projections have been over capacity since the 15-16 school year.
Josh Hamilton, nice to see you on air, Paul. Get out there and make big things happen. Nicole Davenport, yeah, Paul, love that depth of knowledge and logic. J-Dubs, we can have them wait there in the hallway if we could. We have, if that's the news, any news people, we can have them wait in the hallway. If it's my 145 in the hallway too, please. There is a lot of stuff going on right here.
There's a lot of layers to this because there's everything from the lack of planning and good decision making at the Board of Supervisor and Planning Commission level. Then you have the lack of, at best, lack of transparency from the superintendent, and at worst, just flat out either incompetence or just just lying, right? And then you have, we love Mountain View, and it looks like we're going to love Walton, right? When our kids are in middle school. To see those two principals trying their hardest to do what needs to be done to take care of the kids, when basically they're the ones getting arrows thrown at them from both sides. Like, they were put out in front of everybody to deliver this news. And here's one thing I really want to make sure this is really crystal clear to people. You do marketing, you do branding, so sometimes you want to shape the story.
Sure.
The school system, the school board, the superintendent's office, they are all trying to push attention to the way we delivered this news was bad, or the way the process was done was bad. And what they're doing is they're trying to basically put all the attention on, we screwed up over here. When our number one issue is not, we don't like the way it was given to us, but that's not our number one issue. And we don't like the way that the process was going, but that's not our number one. The actual result of whatever system they use to come up with this answer, that's the problem. And what we're seeing is an active attempt to make it about the delivery being bad and going, yep.
That's called smoke and mirrors.
It's exactly.
That's smoke and mirrors.
And the same thing
That's
happened.
managing the narrative.
Yep. And we're seeing that. The meeting last night that was nothing short of a propaganda film, using some of our own, some of Mountain View's own fifth graders.
You should describe it. And we have about 8 minutes left here.
Yeah,
We're at 127
here.
It flies by, right?
We could talk about this for hours.
And you're really, really good at this. You're passionate about this. Explain in about 15, 25 seconds here the video you saw.
So kids were put up, and it was like, what do you like about being at Walton? And one of the kids, I love being at the middle school that I'm going to be going to.
These are the roughly
these
60
these are
that
the
were at
current
Walton.
fifth graders that are there now.
Okay.
So kids are like, I like being with middle school. I like seeing the school that I'm going to be going to. I really like the nature walks. But it was, you tell me if a fifth grader is going to have...
No fifth grader's going to knock it.
Yeah.
Especially when it's a teacher or an admin asking.
Saying, with a camera in front of them saying, tell us why you like being at Walton.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it just...
No fifth grader's going to say, I'm stressed from a social behavior standpoint because the last 14 months I've been learning at home, and when I walk in the hallway, I have some anxiety because there's older eighth graders around me, and they're talking about things like kissing girls and going on dates, and I'm in fifth grade.
And also, you're talking to students who go 2 days a week. We're talking about students that are going to go 5.
Yeah.
So there are definitely current fifth grade parents who are very outspoken about just how awful that it has been. But again, it's the smoke and mirrors. It's using people's flexibility in a pandemic to now give a crack to
try to leverage it.
Exactly.
That's exactly what's happening.
It's one of the things that people kind of fear about with, not to get into the politics too much, but it's the fear that people have is that there was some of these things that were done under the guise of the pandemic.
You're saying the vaccination passport and how far is the government going to keep going? Well, that's what you were alluding to.
There's all kinds of things.
Yeah, right. That's what you're alluding to right there.
But it is like there are things where people have done extra that people have let slide because we're under the guise of, we're doing it under the pandemic. And everybody was bending over backwards to try to get their kids back in school. And now that's coming back to bite people, I
think you got Matt Haas watching right now.
Oh, hey, Matt, how you doing?
4 minutes left here. Casey, we appreciate your perspective. I'm pretty sure you do have him watching. All right, so what are you and your wife going to do? First, start there.
Well, we don't know yet, right?
If they say your daughter's going to Walton, will she be in Walton?
So, if I had to bet money right now, I would say yes.
Okay. Sounds how you described it. It sounds like the decision's already made.
Yeah. So if we most likely, and I'm going to say when I say we, I'm really using this is not a 50-50 decision. My wife's pretty much kind of already.
That's the same in my house.
Because I've made the comment about private school. I've made the comment about whatever. But we love the Spanish immersion program that Mountain View has. It's fantastic. We love that. I've talked to my daughter about it. And this is one of the problems when we say, well, what's the kid's impression, right? My daughter just wants to be with her friends. It's been, even now, her going to school, she goes to school 2 days a week, but some of her friends go the other 2 days. So she's not seeing some of her friends. So she just wants to be with her friends because she doesn't understand all the other ramifications of it.
Of course.
She's not going to
like... She's in 5th grade.
Yeah, she's not going to like that she might not be able to do soccer because she's not going to get home until 5, right? So some of those
soccer practice was earlier.
Soccer practice usually starts at like 6, but by the time you talk about getting home, getting any kind of wind down time, getting ready,
decompress,
so there's a lot of extracurricular activities that these 5th graders are not going to be eligible to do because they're going to get out of school 2 hours later.
Your wife says, if we did not love our Mountain View Elementary School community, teachers, staff, and admin so much, we would not be fighting so hard to stay here.
So
that's well said.
You know what?
She dropped the mic.
Dropped the mic.
Seinfeld, Costanza, go out on a high note.
You totally should have had her do this instead of me.
We should do this interview again with more, I sincerely mean this. I swear and sincerely mean this. If we want to have a parent roundtable, we should do it here. We can have 4 or 6 parents here. We can hash it out. You got the school board watching you.
I think that's what we were hoping yesterday.
And there's no media outlet that's going to give you the long form content like this, where we can go deep, take a deep dive.
Well, and that's like last night we thought it was going to be a discussion and a question and answer session, and it ended up being 45 minutes of propaganda,
smoke and mirrors,
and then trying to squeeze in some stuff. So I think you would. I think you'd have a line of parents signing up to
Jen, Sharon, I sincerely mean that. Lori, I sincerely mean that. There's a father also watching on the feed, Mr. Jennings, Jay Jennings.
Jay.
Just did the study in question. He posted a link in the feed. You got Katie. Parents, if you want to do this, we can continue the discussion. We will change the schedule of guests that are already booked to accommodate a topic that is impactful and timely here on the network. You have the newspapers watching you and the TV stations watching you, school board members, and Dr. Haas. All right, 2 minutes here, because I gotta evidently our 1:35 is way early here. Final word. Anywhere you want to go.
Final word is that we know there are better solutions to this, and just a matter of the few conversations that have happened, we know there are alternatives that the school system has not looked at. There are definitely better options to this. We want to make sure that anybody who's paying attention to this understands that the narrative is the best interest of this particular group of 5th graders, and let's be honest, or this group of rising 5th graders, and to be honest, next year's rising 5th graders and next year after that. It is not about just the delivery of the news, although that is an entire subject we can have. And the other thing that I really want to press to people, Board of Supervisor meetings, Planning Commission meetings matter. And it is important for us, if our leadership is not going to look at the future when they discuss these projects and stuff, it is going to be up to us to show up at these meetings and make sure that the Board of Supervisors and the Planning Commissioners are listening to us about seeing the train coming down the tracks, like this situation, to where I'm pro-development, but we have to be smart.
Strategic
about the way we have to be strategic, and we can't build a school in 3 years to solve today's problem knowing that it's going to be worse 3 years from now.
Amen. Well said. Well said. And we'll close with a message from Carrie Renicky.
Yep.
Per Lori Tambrino's comment, the bottom line is that appropriate and reasonable solutions need to be the focus. Reassessment with parental and community involvement at this point is needed. We are all supposed to be doing what's best for the students, so let's get together and do that to the best of our ability, please. Pam Worley, amen. Everyone needs to be active so they can be seen and heard. We will continue this discussion. I sincerely mean this. Tomorrow is Friday. If we wanted to do this, got Brian Pinkston, who's running for city council. I don't know if I should postpone on Brian Pinkston, who's running for city.
Brian's a good guy.
Brian is a good dude. I'm not going to
guy.
postpone on Brian Pinkston, who's running for city council. But we could probably do this Tuesday, if you wanted to.
I will.
I can reschedule Tuesday.
I think we could probably gather, especially if you're talking about. Are you talking about doing the round? I think we could probably gather.
We could have 3 to 4 parents here, and I'll just follow y'all's lead.
And it'd be awesome to get somebody who is a current 5th grade parents who some of them have been very outspoken.
How incredible would it be to have a 5th grader on set? That's a lot of pressure, I know.
Although we saw if you go in front of them and you say, "Tell us what you like about Walton," they'll say it. So it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting. I think definitely getting the perspective of the parent of a current or parents of a couple 5th graders going through it now would be really interesting to see.
You guys will see this all over the traditional news cycle in the next few days if you haven't seen it already. This gentleman, courageous, well-spoken, a man of vision, a man who is standing up for students and parents alike. I want to thank you for your time.
Yeah.
I sincerely mean that about Tuesday. We can touch base via DM about that. And folks, this is the I Love CVille Show on a glorious Thursday afternoon in Central Virginia. The topic will be on the tip of our tongues moving forward on this network. Thank you for joining us, guys. Take care.
Yeah, thank you.
Hey, you killed it.
Yeah, then not too bad. God, man, I was looking.